Welcome back to WaterparkRanger's Let's Play Pikmin 2. Last episode, we went through more of the Submerged Castle, and this is going to be the episode in which we finish that dungeon and see the end credits of the game. That's right, because we pretty much, I think we're going to clear the debt with this treasure we're getting right here from this iridescent flint beetle. I mean glint beetle, because it's gold. As I mentioned earlier, the glint beetle, if you fail to hit it and it's holding a treasure, it will warp to another section on the floor, so don't worry, you'll just be able to get that treasure from it later, if it gets away from you. Of course you want to do it quickly, otherwise, as you saw, the water wraith is going to show up in 5 minutes. Oh, are you kidding me? We're 5 focus away from clearing the debt. I thought that was going to be the one to do it. If you haven't noticed, the treasures in this dungeon are of incredibly low value. So, in terms of clearing the debt, this is one of the worst dungeons to go in to do that, because it has incredibly low-value Pokos for the risk that you're putting your Pikmin through. Even, like, I think that it has hardly any more money than the Emergence Cave does, really. I think it might be one of the most worthless dungeons in the game. And here, we'll use that same trick, as usual, to KO the big Bullmen, and without whistling for the Bullmen, they'll survive the explosions, and after the explosions go off, we can call all the Bullmen to our sides, because somehow they can miraculously survive explosions, when they're not in our party, as you saw, I think, last episode. No, maybe it was the one before. Yeah, it was the one before. And already we have a new Bullman approaching us, from right over there, because there are 2 Bullman squads on this floor, so technically this is the floor with the most Bullmen in the game. But because Bullmen are not very common, that's not a big thing to say. Yeah, Bullmen hardly appear anywhere else besides here, but they do appear in other places, so there may yet be some dungeons where we may encounter some. Anyway, now we have, like, a ton of Bullmen. Almost 40, because we lost a couple of Pikmin, so... And then we changed 5 of the Bullmen to white Pikmin, so we don't have exactly 40. Probably 35 Bullmen. That sounds about right. And so many bombs on this floor. If you couldn't tell already by now, that's kind of the theme of this floor, is bombs. Though there's poison, too, so that kind of completes the elemental gamut that this, the elemental gauntlet that this dungeon is set up for us. And, interestingly enough, all the treasures were really close together here. We got the iridescent glint beetle right next to the ship, another Duracell battery. This is the one that'll clear the debt. It has to be worth... Okay, 90, that'll definitely do it. Another Duracell. Yeah, Duracell really paid to have a lot of batteries in this game. And the other treasure on the floor is already right here. Normally, this floor is really bad, number one, not because of the insta-kill explosions, but because, like, the treasures are usually on opposite sides of the floor, like, as far apart as can be, but they were all really close together this time. So we're gonna get out of this floor probably without even seeing the water wraith. So the water wraith, interestingly enough, which is the big draw of why this dungeon... Whoa! That was so dangerous! Oh man, did you see that bomb go off over there? We were so lucky the Pikmin were smart enough to carry it through quickly. Sometimes what happens is when Pikmin you want them to, like, carry it past a bomb that's gonna go off, they'll carry the treasure, like, into the bomb so that as they move the treasure away, it's pushing the bomb with them, so that it just goes off, anyway, and kills all of them, so you do want to be careful of that. But as I was saying about the water wraith, that's usually the cause of so much distress in this dungeon. But we only encountered it once, and it was after we'd gotten all the treasures and we're just leaving the floor. So believe it or not, I bet you that this is actually... Ironically, this dungeon is probably gonna give us less deaths than the Hole of Beasts. Which is really sad, actually. I don't know, I'm actually kind of glad to see that this run of this dungeon went so well, because... Oh, the endgame dungeons, I bet... Oh... I know I make big deals about, like, losing Pikmin to, like, bullbears and stuff, but I bet that's only a hint of things to come. Like, seriously, there are so many times when, in upcoming instances, where I highly recommend bringing along sprays and stuff. In fact, I think it's about time that I mentioned, like, about the shower room. It's really not that bad of a dungeon, and I didn't give it a star rating because of the commentary and stuff. I think that got in the way. I'm pretty sure that if it was to get a difficulty rating, I couldn't give it, I'd say, like, 2.5 to 3. The boss there, if you don't know how to fight the boss, then it's more like a 3.5, really. It's more like a 3.5, possibly a 4. Because, believe it or not, the first time I did it without knowing how to fight the boss, I got a Pikmin extinction and got booted out of the dungeon having to do the whole thing over again. So if you're an idiot, shower room becomes a 4. If you're at least a little bit smart, it becomes a 3.5. Normally it's just a 3 to 2.5. I think that sounds smart, so it's really kind of an odd dungeon. Kind of like how this dungeon is tough to rate. Normally, under normal circumstances, once you know how to play, it's more like a 3 to 3.5. Otherwise, it could be anywhere from a 4 to a 5. So really, it's tough to place difficulty because it's different, number one, for each player and the time that you're playing. And also, as you can clearly see, we're here on the final floor, so really, this has gone by really quickly. It's a quick dungeon, if you know how to do it right. Well, no, it's probably like normal length. The standard length for a dungeon, now that I've been looking at the time, is typically around half an hour. The first time you play through that might be more like an hour, depending on where you're going. Once you know how to do it, it's more like half an hour. So this is definitely a game that's very different after your first playthrough. Like, there are some games that are not too different the second time you play through them, actually. I could say, like, for the first Kingdom Hearts, it felt not too different. Like, the Jak and Daxter games, they didn't feel too different playing again after playing them for the first time. But this game definitely feels different once you're more experienced with it. And it's fun to play through again, for sure. This is, like I said, this is one of the games that I've replayed through the most. And, as you saw, there are actually violet candy pop bloods. What is this, the Crips and the Bloods? No, violet candy pop buds on this final floor. So we've used them to get a few purple Pikmin, and now I know that this is supposed to be a no using purples for combat run. However, you do need purples to beat the boss of this dungeon. There's no way around it. They're the only Pikmin that can fight this guy, the Water Wraith, the final boss of this dungeon. Final floor boss. So just use purples, throw them at him, and then he'll turn purple, and when he's purple, any Pikmin can hurt him. And he'll keep doing that as long as you keep damaging him in this form. He's really easy. Of course, once he starts to move around, the Pikmin that get hit by his rollers are instantly killed, as usual, so keep that in mind. Try to keep them away from his rollers. What? A white Pikmin died? Okay, I don't know how that happened. Whatever. So once you defeat him that way, he loses his rollers and gains a second HP bar. However, in this form, he can't actually hurt you at all. He just runs away like a complete... He can't do anything to you. He's just like... So in this form, he just like cowers and turns purple, and if you keep... As long as there's a purple there to hit him with a shockwave, you can keep damaging him. And it's a really disorganized fight, but that's pretty much how it goes down. Of course, you can choose to just fight him only with purples, and I suggest it might go a little bit easier. But because one of the requirements for the run was fight every boss with your complete Pikmin army, that's what's going on here. And that was all there is to the Water Wraith. He's really very easy. The one catch of the battle is that if you're kind of bad at combat, well, okay, it's a big catch, but I'll explain afterwards, after the ship's memo. Processing, how complete? The Wraith completely vanished. But what was it? Surface object scans indicate the presence of a bright red component. That thing right there. As I was saying, the one catch for the battle is because you can only hurt it as long as you have purple Pikmin. If you lose those 10 purples, you can't defeat the boss. And if you have only one purple, or, like, not even 15 Pikmin when you're done, which can happen maybe the first time through if the Water Wraith is really giving you trouble on the other floors, then of course you can't get the last treasure of the dungeon, which really sucks. Oh well, these are all worst case scenarios I'm talking about. It's not like this would ever happen. I'm sure it's happened to someone before though, and I pity them, because I remember actually hearing some reviews of the game complain that one of the problems was that at the end, people found that they were losing so many Pikmin to the dungeon bosses that they didn't have enough Pikmin to carry back the treasure that the boss dropped, which is really pathetic. How insulting! This object's coloring is more eye-catching than my own hole! Well, it's only red and you're like a pinkish red. I like your color more, actually. I should connect it to the alarm clock our esteemed president was so fond of. Okay, processing complete. I've refitted both objects into a plugaphone. Really great upgrade here. Now simply blowing your whistle will inspire Pikmin sprouts to pop out of the ground. That's right, you don't even have to press A anymore for individual Pikmin plucks. Just one whistle, bam, you pluck every single Pikmin in the whistle radius. Incredible item, so the earlier you get this, the better. Of course, because this is a tougher dungeon, I do recommend saving it. And those bullmen aren't going to add to the death count. Who knows? Maybe they live. But of course they can't come with you to the surface, because that would be too cheap. Then you have Pikmin that are resistant to all elements anywhere you want to go. And we only lost 3 Pikmin. If we lost 5 in the Hole of Beasts, that makes this the second best run of a dungeon so far in the game. Sadly, I'm pretty sure White Flower Garden also gave us more deaths. Or maybe the same amount, I forget. Yeah, maybe we lost as many here as White Flower Garden. Typically what happens is this is the one with the most deaths. But ironically, during this no purples run with all these weird requirements, the run went so well. But I have gotten better at it, so it shouldn't actually be that much of a surprise. And we've cleared the debt. You've repaid the entire debt. Finally, all 10,000 Pokos and more in the bag. Mission complete. You've earned 10,000 Pokos. Now Hockaday Freight will be prosperous and debt-free until the end of time. Probably. Prepare to blast off. We return to Hockaday triumphantly. Oh, and you see the president in the sky with a single tear. That was always so corny yet funny to me. I love how they did that. Also, the end of time, this kind of reminds me of Chrono Trigger. I know a little bit off topic, but Chrono Trigger, great game. Very great game. I kind of feel like playing it again one of these days. And now we get one last look at the planet before Olimar's ship jumps into hyperspace and hyperspeed and leaves for Hockaday. And you don't see the purple and white Pikmin faces. I mean, what's up with that? Then again, I guess because they had to be transformed from other Pikmin colors to get them. But wait! Louie's missing! What could have possibly happened to him? No, he's not just ducking down. And so yeah, Olimar leaves and just warps away in an instant, leaving Louie behind, stranded. The question is, did Louie have his own motives for leaving? We will never know. Actually, this whole reason about why Louie leaves is not explained very well. Also, you kind of get that little bit right here in the music that sounds a little bit like when you enter a dungeon. There's a term in that, musically, I just forget what it's called. Motif something? Starts with an L? I don't know, I can't pronounce it. I know how it's spelled, kind of. And anyway, I really like what they did with the credits here with Louie, Claymation. That was kind of cool, although I remember looking at the box art for the first time, and seeing it all in Claymation, I was thinking that was an interesting choice. And I was kind of wondering, you know, like, is the entire game actually going to be in Claymation? Because I'd seen screenshots before, and I'm like, wow, that would be really different if they decided to change that graphical style. And I'm glad they didn't, because I like the current style they have for the game. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, what graphically they're going to do for the game with Wii U. Because it's one of Pikmin 3 is one of the few games confirmed for Wii U, which is Nintendo's next console. When I heard the name for the first time, I felt like, oh, really, Wii U? But then again, everyone felt the same the time that the Wii's name came out, so I don't know. It could have a cooler name, but it's okay as it is. As long as it's a good console. I mean, it's gonna be good. At least with the Wii U, they're catching up to what the 360 and PS3 did this generation. But all joking aside, like, I think it's a good step for them to go forwards with. I know that their company has apparently come into, they've had some predictions that they might come into some really hard financial times. Which is a shame, because I feel like they're finally, like, getting back on track. With the Wii, like, obviously there were some great titles on the Wii. But let's face it, it did not have everything that everyone hoped. Everyone was hoping for, in terms of, like, real hardcore games, you know? And I know that's a term that gets reused over and over, and I'm talking about games kind of like this one. I know it sounds crazy, but games that are more than minigame compilations or pet sims. I'm talking about ones that you can log a great amount of hours into, and have like a lot of nice strategy, good difficulty level. That's really all I'm asking for in a game, not necessarily something hardcore, and I just wish more games like that came out on Nintendo consoles these days. And now we get our current stats for the run. Results prior to repaying the 10,000 Poco debt. Usually all these are like zeros. Yeah. And then oddly enough, it counts you as doing better the less Pikmin that you grow. I would think that, like a challenge run, they'd want you to grow more Pikmin and then put that first, but no. If you end up growing like 5 blue Pikmin, then, which is impossible, then it actually counts it as a better score. And so far, the current time is 5.5 hours of gameplay. So we'll see how much further we take it next episode when we return to the planet. See you then.